Good morning. In today's video, we are going to discuss about person-centered psychotherapy. Under person-centered psychotherapy, we will discuss about conditions of therapeutic process, goals, therapeutic alliance, how does non-directiveness works, and many more concepts which comes under that. Now talking about the goals of person-centered psychotherapy, it should come from the client and not from the therapist. Clients should move away from superficiality to become more complex in that they more deeply understand various facets of themselves. Clients should move in a self-directed manner. They should not be worried about pleasing others, or they should not be worried too much about what image they are forming of themselves from others. It should be coming from a point of view of their personal growth and which fosters their personal well-being in a self-directed manner. Now let us discuss about the necessary and sufficient conditions for the client change. First one being psychological contact. There must be a relationship in which two people are capable of having some impact on each other. Concept of presence, which refers to the therapist not just being in the same room with the client, but also bringing forth her abilities to attend and to be engaged by the client. Second one is incongruence. The client must be in a state of psychological vulnerability, that is, fearful, anxious, or otherwise distressed. Implied in this distress is an incongruence between the person's perception of himself and his actual experiences. Sometimes individuals are not aware of this incongruence, but as they become increasingly aware, they become open to the therapeutic experience. The next one is congruence and genuineness. In the therapeutic relationship, the therapist must be genuinely by herself and not phony. Congruence includes being fully aware of one's body, one's communication with others, being spontaneous, and being open in relationship with others. In addition, congruence incorporates being able to be empathetic and to offer unconditional positive regard to the client. Now, since we have discussed a lot about genuineness, this is the definition of genuineness in therapy, which means that the therapist in his actual self will encounter with his client. Without facade, he openly has the feelings and attitudes that are flowing in him at the moment. This involves self-awareness, that is, the therapist's feelings are being available to him. Now coming to the fourth one, which is unconditional positive regard or acceptance. The therapist must have no conditions of acceptance, but must accept and appreciate the client as it is. Hurtful, painful, bizarre, and unusual feelings as well as good feelings are to be accepted by the therapist. Even when the client lies, the therapist accepts, and eventually the client is likely to confront his own lies and admit it to them to the therapist. So in unconditional positive regard, we accept the client no matter how they are right now, because such a positive and unconditional acceptance from the therapist will give the client the space to be themselves and even for betterment of the client. The fifth one is being empathetic towards the client. Empathy is to enter another's world without being influenced by one's own views and values. To do so, individuals must have sufficient separatedness so that they should not get lost in the perceptual world of the other person, but at the same time, they should understand what the other person is going through. In simple words, we can put it as being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So this means that you are not getting influenced by their perceptions or their point of views, but you understand the emotions and the hardship or the feelings that the person is going through. This would be the last condition of change in the client. When the therapist shows empathy and understands what the client is going through, the client will feel more comfortable to share the issues with the therapist, which will again strengthen the positive therapeutic relationship, yielding to an overall positive impact of the therapy on the client. So that's a very brief discussion about what person-centered therapy was. We discussed about how the therapeutic relationship should be. What should be the conditions that the therapist should pay attention to so that the client can foster most benefit out of the therapy? We discussed what the goals of a person-centered therapy looks like. So that's the end of the video where we discussed the important brief topics of person-centered therapy.